I want to talk about the 5 financial tips or statements that I feel are outdated for the year 2023. Not everyone watching this video will agree with me on everything I say, but I welcome you to leave your comments below. Give me some constructive criticism and none of that "you're so dumb" side or "you're the worst" side, okay? And I'll leave chapters below this video so you can choose to watch whatever you think you agree with or disagree with. And what I know for sure is that many Americans have been struggling financially with high inflation for the past year, and I want to help as many people as I can to budget, save, and invest in financial independence. You can schedule a free one-on-one 20-minute financial coaching session by visiting firesightchat.com/coaching. So the first financial tip I consider outdated is that having a $1 million net worth is financial independence. Now, don't get me wrong, if you own nothing but your investment accounts in the amount of $1 million, then that's a different story, right? With a 4% withdrawal rate, $40,000 a year might be enough for some of you to retire early if you're on the lean fire journey or have other income sources like real estate, pensions, or compensations. I know people who even choose to retire overseas, and I have a whole playlist of where to retire overseas on my YouTube profile, but most people have their home equity in their net worth statement. And you have to ask yourself if you're truly financially independent if you took out your home equity in your net worth statement. For example, let's say my net worth was $1 million, but 40% of my net worth is in my home equity, 30% is in my retirement nest eggs, 20% is in my taxable investments, and 10% in cash. Then that $200,000 in taxable investments won't be enough for me to retire early, right? If I had $1 million at the age of 59 and a half, when I'm eligible to withdraw from my retirement accounts, is $600,000 enough to retire, not counting my other income sources? The answer is that it depends on my overall annual expenses at the time of my retirement. The financial independence calculator is your annual expenses multiplied by 25, which is how much you need in investment to retire early. So if you're spending $60,000 a year, then you would need $1.5 million invested to consider yourself financially independent. And this is why I encourage every one of you to download my financial independence calculator and other spreadsheets for absolutely free by visiting firesightchat.com/contact. You should also check out my Fireside Chat shop to check out my books and equipment at firesightchat.com/shopping. And the second financial tip I consider outdated is that buying a home is better than renting. This statement in the long term is still true. Renting is basically throwing money away at your landlord in the short term. However, paying more than 40 or 50% of your income towards your mortgage is just not financially responsible. In 2020 and 2021, I saw so many people get on that FOMO ride to get right into the housing market. And now people regret paying too much for their homes. And what I'm more concerned about is the fact that they never properly budgeted for their homes. And I always recommend paying less than 25% of your income towards your mortgage, because otherwise you're not going to have enough room to save for your financial independence unless you're in a higher income bracket. And I would rather pay 20% of my income towards rent to save a little more money for a down payment than pay 40 or 50% of my income towards the mortgage and struggle to live paycheck to paycheck. Because that's what happened in 2022 when inflation hit all of us. Now, in 2023, the mortgage rates are still at about 7 to 7.5% for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and the housing market has been cooling down since June and July of 2022, at least in Las Vegas. What you need to understand is that there is a significant lag between the stock market and the housing market. In 2008-2009, during the stock market crash, the market bottomed around 2009, while the housing market didn't bottom until 2011. And I've said it in my previous video about why buying a house in 2022 was a bad idea, and I'm not ready to say that just yet for 2023. However, I want to share a mistake I made in 2014 that might help you with my perspective. In 2014, I bought a house while I was still $60,000 in total debt, and I had $0 in my emergency fund. Just 9 months earlier, I was still $110,000 in total debt between auto loans, credit cards, a TSP loan, and personal loans from my divorce. And I bought the house I'm in now for $180,000. So you're probably thinking, wow, you got a sick deal. It was quite the opposite. At the time, I was still paying off this massive amount of debt. And within 3 months of moving into the house, I had like 4 things break on me. And the biggest one was the water tank basically exploded in my garage, which put me further into debt. So the house became more of a nightmare towards the end of 2014. My advice to you is never to buy a house until you're out of your consumer debt. And you should always or also have a fully funded emergency fund, because trust me, something will break within the first year you move into the house. And the third financial tip I consider outdated is that you need to go to college to have a good career. And I guess this is more career advice than financial advice. And I think most of us millennials and Gen X were fed this information as we grew up. And I told my high school counselor back in 2002 or 2003 that I wanted to delay going to college. And I remember her telling me how I wasn't going to succeed in life because I'll be working at McDonald's for the rest of my life. Boy, if she could see where I am now. But we do have a student loan crisis in America. The student loan forgiveness program doesn't seem to be going anywhere either. And most Americans need to pay for their college in some way. And that's to have jobs on the side, get scholarships or grants, or even take out student loans. While lawyers, doctors, engineers, and teachers need their degrees to do their jobs, I just don't think going to fancy private universities is worth it anymore. And you have to look at your college degree like an ROI. Is going to a private university for $50,000 a year going to give you a higher ROI than going to a public university for $20,000 a year? If the answer is yes, then I hope you have the plan to pay off $200,000 in student loans within the first 4 or 5 years of working your job, because carrying a student loan is a burden, and it shouldn't be considered good debt if you can't pay it off within the first 4 years after you graduate college. Then it becomes a bad debt and you have no return on its investment. And I want to share a little bit of my story. And I enlisted in the Air Force in 2004 because I didn't want to go to college. And I actually did the enlistment ceremony at the 49ers Stadium when they played against the Carolina Panthers, and that was pretty cool to see. My mom was actually pretty mad at me for not telling her that I was going to enlist in the military, especially when the wars were happening in Iraq and Afghanistan. But I used the tuition assistance while I was on active duty to get my 4-year degree completely free. And I even transferred my post 9/11 GI Bill to my daughter so that she doesn't need to pay for any college. The military isn't for everyone, and I totally get that. And this isn't propaganda or a recruitment video. I'm just sharing my side of the story. But I was able to get pretty good paying jobs because of my military experience, and my 4-year degree was a cherry on top. But I think there are more and more people realizing how college is no longer worth it. And unless you're in a specific profession, like I said, lawyers, doctors, nurses, or engineers, the cost of attending college is just outrageous. And I think that's really the root cause of the student loan crisis. So before you send your kids or yourself to college, you have to understand that a high paying job isn't always guaranteed. And you want to make sure you're in a degree that has a decent ROI in the long term. And you also have the choice to attend a community college and then transfer to a 4-year college, which is a lot cheaper. Or you can get high paying jobs by going to trade schools, vocational schools, or technical colleges that provide hands-on training for different careers. And the fourth financial tip I consider outdated is that people shouldn't talk about money. And I think we need to break this. And that starts with parents. And I really wish my parents had talked to me more about their financial situation or the concept of paying bills and taxes. And I think money is a big part of our lives, but we're either ashamed of our financial mistakes or we just like to avoid talking about it, about all of it. And I'm a parent to a 10-year-old girl, and I'm very comfortable talking to her about budget, savings, and investing. She can tell you that what a company stock is better than most 30-year-olds that I've met in my lifetime. And financial education should begin in your household between parents and children. You don't need to scare your children by saying that your house is going to be foreclosed soon, but you can educate your children by saying that you need to cut back on your expenses in the short term while you get your finances back on track. The other thing I believe we should break is talking about money during dating and marriage. And by no means I'm a dating expert because I haven't dated in dated anyone for a long time other than my wife. And someone once said on Reddit that making people put their credit scores on their dating profiles might be ideal in the future, and that made me laugh quite a bit. But a certain financial discussion should happen during the dating stage, and you should find out what your partner's fundamentals or ideas are about basic finances before you move on to the next stage of your relationship, right? If your partner is financially irresponsible, then it's probably best to cut your losses while you still can. And when you're still married, or when you're married, you should always have an open conversation about your finances. I'm a big proponent of combining finances between a married couple, but if you're in a household that separates finances, you should still discuss your short and long-term financial goals. Your marriage would be weird if one of you retires early and the other one keeps working because your finances are separated, right? And the fifth financial tip I consider outdated is that you should never change your jobs. And I've heard this statement so much from my employer throughout my life. And when I found another opportunity to do something I liked with higher pay, I took it. The most miserable people I met were those who worked the same job for over 20 or 25 years. Not only does it hurt your resume due to the lack of experience, but it hurts your personal growth as well. And I chose not to stay in my comfort zone, but instead, I want to explore other opportunities. And here I am now making YouTube videos. And if you have the ability to relocate somewhere else, then that's even better. According to the wage growth tracker by Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank, people's wages who switched jobs between 2020 and 2022 have significantly outpaced those who stayed at one employer since 2011. The 12-month moving average of wage gains for those who switched jobs was 4.3%, while those who stayed saw a 3.2% growth. But if you truly love where you work on your negotiation skills and ask for a raise that matches the market value of your skill sets. We still have a shortage of labor right now. So if you're in a critically manned position like an accountant, software developer, pilot, or financial coach like me, this is your chance to either ask for a raise to match the market value or find another employer that will pay you for what you deserve. Let me know your thoughts on these financial tips I consider outdated, whether you agree or disagree. I will try to reply to every comment within the first few days. And if you want to know more about what professions have the most millionaires and learn how to calculate your financial independence numbers, be sure to check out these two videos. So with that said, I appreciate you watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good one.